has to fight for its survival. So it urged us to develop behaviors and pathologies to help keep it alive. Until we came out. For so many of us, coming out felt like we could breathe for the first time. The moment we wrapped language around our sex, sexuality, and/or gender, we began to release the power shame held on us. Since shame dies when it is spoken, the speaking of our existential truths was the first step toward unlearning the conditioning of shame. What stands before us now is the task of cultivating authenticity and establishing meaningful connections with others. We're living in a time when society's leading personal growth experts, psychologists, and even spiritualists unanimously agree. The quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives. Yet, shame tries to convince us that we are fundamentally unworthy of relationships. So, shame remains the single greatest barrier between ourselves and the experiences that most define our lives. Though queer shame is highly individualized and nuanced, especially when lived and understood through the intersection of race, gender, and class, it's important to note that the need for connection is a universal experience for all of humanity. So, if the quality of our lives is dependent on the quality of our relationships, yet shame poisons our technicolor queer minds with the black ink of, I'm unlovable, I'm not enough, I'm unworthy, then we have a serious crisis of connection on our hands. At the 2017 convention of the American Psychological Association, Dr. Julianne Holt-Lundstad presented work on loneliness. She said, "Loneliness, or perceived social isolation, is a subjective experience relating to dissatisfaction with one's social relationship. Loneliness is becoming an increasingly significant public health concern. A 2018 survey conducted by global health service Cigna found nearly half of Americans report sometimes or always feeling alone, 46%, or left out, 47%. This loneliness percentage has doubled in the last 50 years. Loneliness is treated as an epidemic by some social researchers and health professionals, since it is linked to physical illness and to functional and cognitive decline. Studies show that loneliness is associated with an increased risk of developing dementia and chronic diseases, and also with a higher rate of mortality. Of course, nothing is new under the sun. In 1928, a seminal fictional but perhaps autobiographical text published in Great Britain, The Well of Loneliness, follows protagonist Stephen Gordon, an aristocratic woman who lives with sexual inversion, prefers to dress in a masculine fashion, and loves women. The Well of Loneliness follows Stephen from childhood to adulthood, while she negotiates her way around her inversion and gender identity and experiences a series of painfully familiar disappointments due to her unrequited love for other women. The Well of Loneliness is considered one of the first, if not the first, queer coming-of-age stories. Though it's close to a century old, the narrative of loneliness in queer lives is heartbreakingly timeless. Radcliffe Hall writes, "What remained? Loneliness, or worse still, far worse because it so deeply degraded the spirit, a life of perpetual subterfuge, of guarded opinions and guarded actions, of lies of omission, if not of speech, and becoming an accomplice in the world's injustice by maintaining at all times a judicious silence, making and keeping the friends one respected on false pretenses, because if they knew they would turn aside, even the friends one respected." Countless of us in the queer community, like Hall's central character, ask, what remained? As a social species, we need connection to survive and thrive. Our lives depend on it. We're hardwired to need the joy and fulfillment that relationships bring us, and it's not just for our health. We need collaboration to dismantle the social structures that deny the bare minimum of legal protections to our community.